Are you worried that some of your team might be thinking of quitting on you? Well, in this video, I'll give you 5 of the main reasons that your team might be thinking of leaving. And we'll also talk about what you can do as a manager to stop it happening. You haven't got much time, so I'm getting straight into what you came here for. Let's get into the tips. So the first reason your team might be looking to leave is you. Think back to a time when you've made a decision to leave a job. And I'll bet that it's more often been down to the manager you had. It's often said people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. And that is so true. Your direct manager is one of the biggest influences on your day-to-day happiness at work. And as these days we see work bleeding into home life, so the manager actually has an impact on your mental health and well-being outside of the office as well. So if that manager is a problem, then you've also got a problem. And there are many reasons why a manager can be a problem. They might have the best intentions but be inexperienced and ineffective at leading a team. They might be good people and just not know what they were doing. Or they might be pretty good at helping the team get the work done, but they might not do so much for your own development or career progression. Or simply they might just not be very well suited to people management and might have found themselves in a role that they're not particularly good at. But then there's the class of manager that's always a real problem. The bully or the narcissist, the one with the agenda. Those are the managers you really want to get away from as soon as possible. So as a leader in your organisation, take a step back and be self-aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. Are you leading with empathy and compassion and trust? Are you fostering a culture of psychological safety? Are you tackling workload, mental health issues and burnout? Are you helping your team get the rewards, the recognition, the career progression that they deserve? There's a lot involved in leading a team well. And as a leader, you'll need to make sure you're aware of all of the spinning plates of leadership that you have and where you need to get better. And if you can do that well, you'll have a fighting chance of keeping your team happy. If you're not doing it so well, people will be looking to leave. So learn the art and psychology of people management. Use all the tips and tricks. And above all, show that you care with honesty, integrity and humility. The next reason why somebody might be thinking of leaving is salary. In the modern workplace of today, the financial aspect isn't generally the number one motivator for engaged employees. Sure, good companies will have to pay well to get the top talent, but it's not usually the main driver, at least not in my experience. But as a leader, you will have to ensure that people are getting paid well, usually above market rate, to make sure that salary doesn't become an issue big enough for people to leave. Make sure you're all over the salary variances in your team and be sure that people get paid as close to the same rate for the same job or experience level. Now, salaries can vary a lot, especially in big companies. People can negotiate, and length of tenure at a company can mean that some people can end up on disproportionately higher or lower salaries than their colleagues. And if people get wind of these discrepancies, then they'll get very upset very quickly. It's the job of the leader to not only ensure that a high level of reward for talented people is there, but also to make sure that everything to do with salary and money and reward is as fair as it can possibly be. People can actually put up with some salary challenges, that money isn't quite as high as they want. But when they think the playing field isn't level for everybody, that it's unfair, that's when morale can collapse and you'll see people leaving. So as a leader, make sure you're all over the money situation. It's an awful feeling to lose talented people because of a few dollars here and there, but it does happen. Commute. Pretty simple this. Getting to work and back home again has got to be a relatively tolerable experience. It can't be something that your team or you dread every time you go to bed. And yes, a lot of people do have long or unpleasant commutes to work on the train or car or public transport. It's a common issue. But this common issue should never be overlooked or taken for granted by managers or organisations. For every day of friction that an employee experiences with their sucky commute is a day that their overall employee experience of working for you is compromised or not as good as it could be. And everybody's got a breaking point. I've seen many people leave jobs because they can't face their commute anymore. They love the job, they just hate getting there. So what can you do as a leader? Well, you can't control where people live or where an office is based, but there are things you can do to ease the burden of a bad commute. First, you've got to actually know that the employee isn't happy with their commute or that there's a potential issue there. And that only comes from building a close and trusting relationship with your people, something that you should be doing anyway. And then when you know there's a problem, you can look to build in flexible working arrangements to ease that pain of the bad commute. Since COVID, many organisations are much more open to such arrangements, so use your imagination, work with your HR department and see what you can do to make things better. Or maybe there's a second office that someone could work in occasionally. Maybe get the whole team off-site for a couple of days a month. Again, many different options, and obviously success will depend on the individual and their particular circumstances, but it's possible to fix this. So as a leader, be aware of the overall experience your employee goes through from the moment they wake up. It's all part of working for you and being in your team, and leaders must do their best to make the whole experience as smooth as possible. Oh, this is the part of the video where the YouTube experts tell me that I'm supposed to ask you to subscribe and like the video. Well, I'm not going to. If you like the videos, then you will. You don't need me to tell you to like or subscribe, so let's get on with it. Career progression. Now, this is one that's becoming all the more common in today's workplace, and especially in companies that don't particularly excel at dishing out promotions and role advancements. These days, high-performing employees don't just expect their careers to move, they absolutely demand it. And for those people that excel year after year after year, well, they really need to see the opportunities opening up in front of them. And this isn't easy. As people move up the career ladder and gain grade promotions, there are fewer senior roles available. And that's made worse by some rigid rules around the number of promotion slots that are actually available to be awarded to people. So what you'll find, especially in high-performing organisations, is that there's a queue of people building up that are all performing at a level above their grade, and that all deserve to be promoted. And then that's when employees get very frustrated indeed. And that's made even worse if people notice that some divisions or job functions or areas of the company seem to be getting more than the average number of promotions. I've seen it a few times where people that work in technology or IT or back office functions get regularly overlooked for promotions, regardless of their performance, whereas those that are in more client or business facing roles seem to get a much greater share of the career advancement opportunities. And yes, people do notice. People will be downloading that promotions list and analysing the data and seeing which teams and which departments are getting more than their fair share. So any discrepancies will quickly become the talk of the town. And that's when high performers decide it's time for them to leave. As a leader, you must ensure that you're driving your team into the promotion process as much as you can. Make sure that your high performers are being put forward to compete for those promotion slots. And not only that, but make sure that you as a manager are helping them create the most compelling case possible for them to be successful. In many companies, the promotion process often boils down to who can represent their candidates in the most effective and persuasive way. And leaders that come to the table with a fact-based, easy to understand case showing impact, purpose, full of stakeholder testimonials, well, they'll have a much greater chance of success in getting their people through than those that don't put as much effort into it and form a much less detailed or organised case. And this really isn't easy. And in my experience, it's one of the hardest leaving reasons to mitigate for a team manager. But you owe it to your people to try and ensure that their career progresses. Burnout. Not just burnout, but the overall mental health of an employee is something that people are much more aware of these days. Make no mistake, if one of your team is experiencing severely degraded mental health because of their job, then they will leave. Gone are the days of people just soldiering on and keeping going and putting off their situation as it's just a tough time in the office these days. Those days don't happen anymore. People are now well aware of burnout, stress, and overall mental health. And for sure they won't be putting up with a job that they see as having a toxic effect on their mental health, or a job that they see is sending them hurtling towards a burnout situation. And more than that, they'll be expecting you as a leader to be able to monitor and evaluate their mental health on a regular basis. They'll be expecting you to be aware enough to have your finger on the physical and mental pulse of all of your employees, and to be reaching out to them to look after them and get their heads up on any issues that they have. As a leader, you must treat your people like your own family. And maintaining mental health is a particularly tricky, emotive and challenging aspect of leadership, not least because everyone has completely different thresholds. Completely different thresholds, tolerances and contributing situations. It's certainly not one size fits all. But if you get it right, then you'll be able to not only retain your talent, but also ensure that your people are able to excel and thrive under your leadership. And that's great for them, it's great for you, and it's great for the team and the organisation as a whole. Burnout is a really serious situation, and it can affect anybody in a team, including managers and leaders. Are you feeling burnt out at the moment? Or do you think you're on the road to burnout? Because I've compiled an expert guide to being able to recognise and address burnout before it hits. Take a look at this video. It could be the video that makes all the difference for you. Thanks for watching.